My mornings used to be a blur. I'd wake up, I'd glance at my phone, I'd dive straight into Slack messages or investor emails and high-stakes decisions before even brushing my teeth. And this might sound familiar because as a CEO, your brain is your operating system and mine was constantly lagging. So I tried something radically simple, which is just 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio every morning for 30 days. Now, I didn't do this to lose weight. I didn't do this to prep for a triathlon or anything like that. I just wanted to see what it would do to my focus and my memory and my mental stamina and just overall decision making. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what zone 2 cardio is, why I picked it, and how I structured the experiment. And most importantly, what changed in my brain over the course of those 30 days. We're going to get into the science, the practical takeaways, and how this one simple habit might become your new cognitive edge. But before we go into the results, I want to talk about why I did this in the first place. Now, I wasn't crashing, I wasn't burned out, but something felt just a little bit off. Deep down, I knew that I wasn't operating quite at 100%. And you probably know that feeling, that mid-morning brain fog or that mental sludge when you're trying to write or solve a problem or make a tough call, but your brain just feels like it's moving way slower. And this had become my default and I was done with it. Now, I'd read all the usual stuff about zone 2 cardio. Endurance athletes swear by it, longevity experts love it, but buried in all of that performance talk, there was something that got me really excited, which is what it does to your actual brain. Now, we're talking about increased mitochondrial function, more neurogenesis. Your brain is actually building new neurons, even protection against long-term cognitive decline. So I had a thought, what if instead of diving straight into Slack and investor emails, I gave my brain 30 minutes of slow, steady fuel up time every single morning? And that's where this started. So no shortcuts, no skip days, just me, zone 2 cardio, and a 30-day commitment. Let's first understand what zone 2 cardio is and why does it matter to startup founders and CEOs. Zone 2 cardio isn't some elite athlete hack. It's accessible, sustainable, and perfect for busy people who want to boost longevity and brain performance. The actual happening is that your heart operates in 5 zones, from zone 1, which is barely moving, to zone 5, which is pedal to the metal. Zone 2 is kind of at the lower end of the middle, which is that sweet spot. You're moving, you're sweating, but you can still hold a conversation. You're cruising at usually between 110 and 140 beats per minute, which is roughly 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. It's the kind of effort where you're dialed in, but you're not destroyed. Think about incline treadmill walks or steady cycling or just very light jogging. You're not redlining and there's no exhaustion. Okay, so why does it matter to founders? So here's where it gets really interesting, especially if you're a founder or a CEO. Zone 2 training does incredible things to your brain and your body. So it ramps up mitochondrial function, which is your body's energy factories. It delivers more oxygen to your brain, it improves insulin sensitivity, and even supports neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to adapt and grow over time. So in simple terms, it means better focus, clearer thinking, and more emotional resilience, and less mental fatigue throughout the day. Now, for a CEO constantly making decisions and solving problems and handling pressure, this is like hitting refresh on your brain every single morning. Now, if any of this is resonating with you and you're serious about becoming a sharper, healthier, and high-performing leader, hit the subscribe button. This channel is here to help founders and CEOs optimize performance without burning out. And it's no hype or nonsense, it's just real strategies to build a better brain, a better body, and of course, a better business. Let me walk through exactly how I structured my mornings during this 30-day experiment. I kicked off my day at 6:30 a.m. So no phone, no email, or digital noise of any kind, just me and a tall glass of water with a hit of electrolytes. I used Element, that was my go-to, and a firm decision to get moving. Then 15 minutes of waking up, I was either lacing up for a brisk walk outside or hitting the treadmill for a slight incline, just enough to make my heart work without burning me out. The goal was to keep my heart rate between 125 and 135 beats per minute, which is my personal zone 2 range. I didn't guess, I wore a chest strap heart rate monitor to stay really dialed in. I didn't have any caffeine beforehand. This was totally fasted cardio and it was fueled only by water and electrolytes. Now remember, I wasn't chasing fat loss or performance, I was optimizing for mental clarity, mitochondrial function, and mood. That meant fewer variables. So no stimulants, just movement and breath. For 30 uninterrupted minutes, I was disconnected from the world. Sometimes I'd put in a podcast, something light, not business related. Other days I'd listen to ambient music, or sometimes I would just let my mom totally wander. So no texting, no Slack. This is just a meeting with my brain. I also track my sleep religiously. Zone 2 might feel easy, but it still taxes your system. So sleep became my feedback loop, my performance ceiling. If I didn't sleep well, I'd ease the pace back the next day, but I would never skip. I'd also pair this with cold showers right after cardio. The point of all this was to start my day with oxygenated blood, a calm nervous system, and the kind of mental clarity that compounds into productivity, patience, and better decisions. weeks. And honestly, it worked better than I expected. Week 1 didn't hit me physically, it did hit me mentally. I wasn't gasping for air or battling sore legs or anything like that. I was mainly fighting with my own thoughts. Day 2, I was restless, fidgety, my body was moving, but my brain was still stuck in overdrive. Slack notifications, to-do lists, pitch decks, investor updates, everything kept swirling, even though none of it was actually in front of me. There were no dopamine hits, no distractions. It was just me, my breath, and the uncomfortable realization that my mind had gotten noisy, too noisy. But then by day 4, something shifted. I wasn't just checking a box anymore. I was settling into it. My mornings felt quiet and grounded, as if I had carved out a buffer between sleep and the chaos of the day. And this was the first time in a long time that I didn't feel rushed the second that I woke up. By the end of the first week, I started noticing a few small but meaningful changes. I had less brain fog in the mornings. I didn't need caffeine just to feel human. My moods were smoother, not euphoric, just steady and centered. I felt like I had lower stress spikes, even whenever the unexpected hit. And then the big one, I had deeper, more restorative sleep. I checked my sleep tracker, and sure enough, I noticed a serious bump in slow wave sleep. That's the phase where your brain flushes out toxins, consolidates memory, and resets neurotransmitters. This wasn't just, I'm feeling better. This was real. It was physiological improvement, measurable and repeatable. And it all stemmed from 30 minutes of low intensity movement actually done consistently. But what stood out the most? But one of the things that stood out the most was this ritual that I didn't know I needed. It was mental space. It was space to think and space to breathe, just to be for a while before the day kicked in. There was no pressure to perform or no metrics to hit. It was just quiet movement and stillness. It was just coexisting. And the best part of this is it was only week 1 and the real gains hadn't even kicked in yet. Now, by the second week, the change wasn't subtle anymore. This wasn't just about feeling better. I was operating at a higher level. My brain wasn't just waking up in the morning. It felt like I was upgrading. One of the first things I noticed was verbal fluency. So investor calls, team stand-ups, and tough conversations, my thoughts came out clean and they came out sharper. I didn't need to pause and dig for the right words. They were just there. No filter. There's no filler, no mental lag, just clarity and the confidence that I needed in the moment. Then something clicked with working memory. You know, whenever you think of 3 things to do and by the time you get to your desk, you've forgotten the second one? Well, that stopped happening. So tasks would stay online in my head for longer. I wasn't just checking notes or repeating things or losing mental tabs. It was as if I had RAM instead of Post-its. Then there was focus. I was locked in for 2-3 hours straight with no distractions or context switching. It was like I had momentum on tap. But the most surprising shift for me was the emotional regulation. So stressful situations didn't affect me nearly as much as they used to because I wasn't reacting. Instead, I was responding with more patience and more clarity. It's almost like my nervous system had grown a longer fuse. And by this point, I didn't even have to do the cardio. I just wanted to because I was craving the 30-minute window each morning for that mental stillness. It was something that became somewhat sacred to me. And I think it was because this is the part of my day that was not reactive or performative. It wasn't for anybody else. It was just for me, my breath, and the rhythm of my steps. It was like a chance to connect before I had to lead. And that, for a founder or any leader, is worth everything. By the time I hit week 4, there was no negotiating with myself in the mornings. There was no inner dialogue or debating on whether or not I should get up. There was no bargaining over the snooze button. I just woke up, hydrated, moved, and breathed, and sharpened my mind. And what started as a challenge had turned into a ritual. It was both automatic and embedded. And the impact that it had started coming up in other areas of my life. First of all, energy, and not the kind that spikes and crashes. I'm talking about a steady, clean current from morning to night. No mid-morning fog, no second coffee at 10:30, no post-lunch energy dip that leaves you staring at your screen. Just consistent, natural energy to stay with me through meetings and deep work and even the chaos. What really stood out though was my decision-making power. It wasn't just that I was making calls faster, it was that I was making them cleaner. I wasn't rushing, I was never thinking. My brain had cleared out all the mental clutter and suddenly it was easier for me to see the signal through the noise. I was connecting the dots more quickly, trusting my gut, and acting with real conviction. And if you're running a company, you know what that means. Every day throws decision after decision at you, team stuff, investor stuff, product pivots, unexpected fires. You can't afford to spiral. You have to stay grounded and clear. That's what Zone 2 cardio gave me. Not a productivity hack, not a morning buzz, but a reset. A daily mental tune-up that quietly rewired how I operated. By the end of the 30 days, I didn't just feel different. I felt mentally and emotionally different. Even physiologically upgraded. All it took was 30 minutes a day. Not all-out effort, just consistent movement at 60 to 70% of my max. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the simplest things. And for me, this was one of them. Now, I know all of this might just sound like a feel-good story, but what I experienced over those 30 days, I don't think was a fluke. It was rooted in real neuroscience and real physiology. Let's start with the brain's favorite fertilizer, which is BDFN, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Zone 2 cardio increases BDFN levels significantly. This compound helps your brain form new connections, protect existing neurons, and boost learning and memory. Think of it like a miracle grow for your mind. Next, we have neurovascular coupling, which may sound complex, but simply refers to the better coordination between blood flow and neuroactivity. When your brain cells fire, they require oxygen and nutrients to be delivered quickly and efficiently. Now, Zone 2 training improves this delivery system, making the brain more efficient under load. And then there's the energy side of things. Your brain is a metabolic monster. It uses up about 20% of your body's energy at rest. Zone 2 training enhances mitochondrial health, which means that the power plant in your brain cells work better and longer without burning out. Now, this also helps you regulate cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone. As a founder and executive, you're already swimming in cortisol from nonstop decisions, risk, and uncertainty. Low intensity cardio, like Zone 2, blunts those spikes. You stay calmer, more rational, and less reactive under pressure. And insulin sensitivity. When your body processes glucose more efficiently, your brain gets a steady stream of fuel. That means fewer energy dips, better mood regulation, and more consistent cognitive performance. So no, this wasn't some placebo effect. The clarity, focus, and emotional steadiness that I felt were a direct result of what science has already confirmed. What's wild is how underutilized this is. You don't need to train like an elite athlete to experience these benefits. Just commit to 30 minutes a day, stay in the right heart rate zone, and give your brain the upgrade that it deserves. Zone 2 is not hype, it's just human performance 101. I want to talk about what made it challenging and how I managed to make it work. Now, while this wasn't all smooth sailing, the hardest part was not the cardio itself. It was just the consistency. Some mornings I just didn't want to get out of bed. I had meetings, I had deadlines, I had distractions. There were travel days where I had to squeeze in my cardio at random hotel gyms. But because I had made a promise to myself, I had to treat that promise like it mattered, because it did. And what I learned is that discipline becomes momentum, and momentum becomes identity. So if you're thinking about trying this, whether you're a founder, creator, or a high performer, or just somebody who wants more brain energy without reaching for a Red Bull, here's how to start. First of all, pick your machine. This could be a treadmill, bike, rower, just a steady outdoor walk with some incline. It doesn't need to be fancy, it just needs to be consistent. If you want to use a heart rate monitor, don't guess, stay in Zone 2, which is approximately 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. For most people, that's somewhere between 115 and 140 beats per minute. You can start with 3 days a week, let your body and schedule adapt. And once that becomes manageable, move up to 5 or 6 days. Do it in the mornings if you can, before the noise, before the inbox, before the world starts pulling at you. Try to make this time sacred. Doing it early sets the tone for the rest of the day. Your brain gets that oxygen boost before the world starts pulling at your attention. Now, I'd also recommend you stack it with something you enjoy, like a podcast or an audiobook, or maybe a good playlist. This turns the habit from a chore to something you actually look forward to doing. You want to keep the space clean, so no social media or news or work calls. Use this time to recharge instead of reacting. And remember, this isn't about burning calories or chasing a physique goal. This is about giving your brain a daily tune-up. Mental clarity, emotional resilience, and leadership energy are all built in quiet, consistent moments where you just show up and move. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for perfection. Just start and your brain will thank you. So what did I learn after 30 days? If you're building a business, leading a team, or just trying to navigate a high stakes, high pressure life, your mental performance is your most valuable asset. That's what this 30-day Zone 2 experiment taught me. And the lesson wasn't flashy. It was simple, but it hit deep. You don't need to hustle harder. You need better recovery. You don't need more hours. You need more clarity. Because the truth is, grinding through mental fog isn't a strength. Leading from a stressed out state doesn't scale. And resilience isn't something that you can pull out in a crisis. It's something that you build quietly every single day. That 30-minute window every morning gave me exactly that. If you're serious about showing up your best, this is where it starts. Not more effort, but with better fuel. So after 30 days of morning Zone 2 cardio, I can say this with full confidence. It rewired my brain. I had more energy throughout the day, my focus sharpened, anxiety quieted down, my sleep got deeper, and most importantly, I felt calm, steady, in control, even when everything around me was moving fast. And if this resonated with you, don't stop here. Click this video to check out the diet that takes me to peak productivity.